I'm John Batchelor. Larry Kudlow of CNBC and Kudlow Radio on the Weekend is my co-host, and we go immediately to Terry Anderson, the Hoover Institution, as well as the executive director of PERC, the Property and Environment Research Center in Bozeman, Montana. Terry publishing with his colleague at Hoover, Carson Bruno, a measure of fracking, hydraulic fracking, the risks and the gain for the people of the United States in the fracking revolution of the last 5-6 years. Terry, a very good evening to you. I want to go to the summary, get everybody's attention. You write that there is a study, IHS Global Insight study, that says that hydrofracking in the United States, if endorsed everywhere, not just in the states that are red, but everywhere, including New York and California, would add $417 billion to the national economy and employ 3 million more people in the next 5 years. Terry, is that hyperbole, or are you convinced this number is good? Good evening to you.
Well, John, I'm always a little skeptical of these kind of grandiose estimates, but certainly it's not unrealistic to think it will be in the hundreds of billions additional value to the economy and millions of people added to the employment list. All you need to do is go to a state like North Dakota and see where the unemployment rate is virtually zero, where incomes are high, tax revenues are high. It is a microcosm of America that could exist in many other places and would spread that wealth to other places, both in the form of jobs as well as and income, as well as energy to drive the economy in many other sectors.
Terry, but by the way, IHS Global, pretty good outfit. I know them; they're pretty good. I agree; it's hard to make long-term estimates, but what I took away from your piece was the fabulous economic benefits of fracking and horizontal drilling, about which John and I have spoken many, many times. But what you're saying, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you look at these environmental risks. There are always risks. They may not be significant or serious risks, but they're risks. But somebody has to weigh those risks against the economic benefits. And I don't think the environmental movement does a very good job weighing those two.
Not only then do they not weigh the risks, John has the question of whether this was just hype on the job side. It's hype on the risk side for sure. I've looked at no risk associated with fracking that comes close to really raising an eyebrow, I'd almost say. It's a case, in my estimation, of using these risks to stop energy development, pure and simple, and to do it in the name of we can't have fossil fuel energy driven economy. If you look at the risks of water contamination, for example, the ones that people always bring up, the burning tap water. Those aren't from fracking wells that have been developed. They're from leakage of natural methane into gas or into water sources. But it's not from the process of fracking itself. It can happen if it's done improperly, but most of the states have gotten a handle on the regulations necessary to really, as you suggested, assess the risks and take them into account.
I mean, if the EPA, no friend of fossil fuels, if the EPA signs off on fracking, Terry, that's got to be good enough. That has to be good enough.
For sure. I mean, the EPA, if you can meet EPA standards, you're doing pretty well. And I think it's a matter of weighing these risks, and they're real. There are some real risks, but they are small, and they can be easily dealt with within a regulatory framework that virtually every state has. It doesn't even require the heavy hand of the EPA.
The puzzle here is is this fight rational during the Obama administration? The delay of the Keystone XL pipeline, the long process of getting permits in the Gulf, even after all these years of repair down there, and generally the picture of energy or fossil fuel being not welcome in Washington, Terry. Hydrofracking is cut off on all that. So I don't think we can get a clear picture of the idea of risk or benefit as long as the president and his administration are so against all of this energy revolution.
Well, I think that you bring up the Keystone XL, and I think that's just another example of standing in the way of rational energy development right here at home, and with it transporting that energy in safe ways. Pipelines are incredibly safe, and if you go back a few months and think about the rail crash in Canada, those there is some concern there that rails are far less safe than pipelines, but if we force that oil and gas to go into rail cars, well, that's because we aren't allowing these kind of pipelines to be built. It's clear that the Keystone XL is just another example of using environmental hype to stifle energy development, pure and simple.
I think, you know what, this is just my opinion. I think President Obama sold out the unions and stepped away from Keystone in order to get $100 million from this hedge fund guy, Tom Steyer, out in California. I think that's all it's a pure political action. It has no analysis in it whatsoever. They figured out how to sidestep the water areas in Nebraska. That's just nonsense. They want $100 million from Tom Steyer. That's what this is all about, Terry.
And he's got more coming. He's going to fight these kinds of issues all the way through the next election, and I don't think there's a candidate out there that's not going to at least hear from him if they support things like the Keystone XL.
Larry, would you say that the Obama administration uses regulations to raise money, regulations to feed its coffers politically? It's using regulations in energy?
I do. I absolutely do. And, you know, I think, by the way, I got it here. We have it here, John. Andrew Cuomo knows full well that his own people have signed off on the fracking, as has across the border in Pennsylvania. He knows that. But Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has single-handedly stopped it with politics and money-raising, and Cuomo, for some reason, fears that. So in that sense, he's a miniature version of Obama. But absolutely, Obama will use any means possible to stop, the Democratic hemorrhaging in the midterm election.
So paradise is North Dakota. Is that right, Terry? North Dakota is the future for America if we get it right.
Well, you probably haven't been there in a winter blizzard when you say it's paradise.
No.
Well, it's what could be going on and is going on in other states, as you mentioned, Pennsylvania, and I think there's an important point to raise in addition to regulation
quickly,
stifling from the Washington. It is that states themselves are shooting themselves.
Terry Anderson and Larry Kudlow. I'm John Batchelor.